Blazers have won 4 of their last 5. As of today, Michael, the Blazers have played more games, 44 of them, than any other team in the NBA. It has been more like a sprint and not a marathon so far this season.
Well, the schedule balances out.
It will.
It's great to have a homestand and have some time in between games.
No more 3 games in 4 nights until the very tail end of February. So I know who's happy about that. We're joined by a fellow who's in his 3rd season as a Blazers assistant. That would be Nate Tibbetts. Yeah, it has been like a little bit of a sprint so far, hasn't it, Coach?
It's been 44, but it feels like 84.
How are you tonight? All things considered, you guys come back from that trip on the East Coast, bounce back nicely after that loss in Philly, and pick up a nice one yesterday against the Wizards.
Yeah, getting 2 out of 3 on that road trip was, made it a really good road trip. If you would ask us before we went what wins it would have probably been, I don't know if it would have been the 2 that we got, but everyone was proud of how our guys bounced back, after a tough game in Philly and really responded against Washington.
Coach, can you kind of help the fans, take us behind the curtain a little bit? When you're on the road playing like that and you don't have a lot of game prep time, or you certainly don't have time to get on the floor and walk through things because of the quick turnaround of games, what's that process look like? I mean, how do you get it done?
Well, so we played in Brooklyn, and then that day, because we travel east, I think it's a 5.5 hour flight. We don't have a shoot around the next morning because, our shoot around would be at 10, and that would be 7 o'clock here. And so, as far as sleep patterns go and stuff like that, we do things a little bit different when we travel east. And then when you play back-to-back, you're not going to get the guys up and going for a shoot-around, so you're not getting on the court there either in Philly. But we get together and watch film as a group, and then we watch film, obviously, before the game. But it is different, it just kind of and for our guys, it's just kind of getting into a rhythm of how it works on the road. We travel more than any other team in the NBA, so it's something that we travel more miles and distance than any other team. So it's something that we got to get used to as a team. And for the most part, since I've been here, we've played pretty well on the road.
Blazers assistant Nate Tibbetts joining us on Trailblazers Courtside. Coach, we continue to talk about the process and playing out and watching these guys right now continue to develop in the system. I think it's pretty much safe to say that you're probably a little bit ahead of schedule by what you've seen so far from this year. But the learning and the teaching, of course, never ends. Where are you guys as a coaching staff really most pleased with what you've seen so far in the first 60% of the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, from all the coaches, is probably just how coachable our guys are and how willing they are to try new things and willing to try the things we're asking them to do. We know our defense needs to get better. We know our execution can get better with time, but just the willingness for our guys to come in and want to work and improve has been a lot of fun for our coaching staff.
Coach, talking about defense, I really want to talk to you about pick and roll for a second, offensively and defensively. The pick and roll defense, particularly starting with the OKC game where we saw more pressure and we saw double teaming and we saw how effective and energizing that was. So I want you to comment on that, and if I can also throw this in before I let you respond. And then offensively, responding to being pressured in pick and rolls has really improved as well.
Yeah, well, I can start offensively. For us, obviously, Damian and CJ are our primary ball handlers, and we get into a ton of pick and roll. And, they're our 2 best scoring options, and teams have really tried to get the ball out of their hands and make it tough on them. And, this is the most that both those guys are seeing that. Obviously, Dame has seen it the last couple years, but when he got trapped or blitzed or double-teamed, however you want to say it, he knew where his teammates were going to be. And, where certain guys would roll or pop. And, I think it's taken some time to get, for him to know what Myers is going to do. How is Noah going to respond? What is Mason going to do? Where is Ed going? And then for our guards to maybe shift on the backside. Maybe it's different for Gerald than what he was used to. So I think for Damian and CJ, the last probably 5 to 10 games, you've seen their assist numbers go up because, they're feeling more comfortable with where their teammates are going to be. And, it's tough also because both those guys are scorers. And we need them to score. So just finding that balance of when to look for their own shot and then also being able to be a willing passer. And I think they're improving in that area, and I think they're enjoying seeing those other guys make plays out of those double teams.
Coach, on the defensive side of the pick and roll, again, for some reason I keep going back to the OKC game. They were coming off the elbows going towards the sideline, which was a tailor-made angle for the type of pressure that we put on them. Is it easier to trap guys that are going at that angle, and is that why we haven't seen more trapping, or is that just situational in that game?
Probably more situational. We have traditionally, in the last 3 years, been pretty conservative with our pick and roll defense. In years past, obviously, we've had maybe a little more length at the rim, and had guys that had played in that system or were more veteran. This is new for a lot of our bigs, just being back and maybe retreating more than they have in the past. But it's something, blitzing or being up in the pick and roll, being more aggressive is, something that Coach Stotts made a decision against Oklahoma City, and just to give them a different look. I don't know, we haven't done it a ton since, but it's something that we now have in the package, and, the guys felt good about it, so you may see it again at some point down the line.
Nate Tibbetts joining us here on Trailblazers Courtside, looking at this homestand and the upcoming stretch of games. Is there any talk internally with you guys knowing that this is like the most important stretch of the year for you? You got 12 of the next 14 that are right here at Moda Center. I mean, that schedule looks pretty favorable when you look at it, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, it does, and it's one of those things, I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. You can't get looking too far ahead, because then the next game you get your feet knocked out from under you. Because I'm sure when a lot of people look at our schedule at the beginning of the year, you go through and try to finish it, figure out how many wins and losses there are going to be. There's probably a lot more losses than there were wins. So, you can't assume anything. And I think we've surprised people when we've come out with the right mentality and played hard. I know that, like you said, we're waiting for the schedule to kind of catch up to us.
Right.
We've kind of been extended out and had 3-4 more games than some of these other teams that we played. And now, obviously playing in front of our home crowd is going to be really good for our guys. And I think we have a lot of confidence. And so hopefully, that can carry over to some good basketball for us.
Yeah, well, we're all looking forward to seeing you guys here for the foreseeable future. Yeah, it's going to be, it's like the next 17 days. The Blazers aren't leaving town, so that's good stuff. Hey, Coach, thank you so much for the time. We always appreciate it when you come on and give us some insight as to this Trailblazer season so far. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.